everyone, my name is Della Phillips. I'm an artist as well as I'm known as the Bicycle Lady. How you doing today? I'm doing great. Now let's get business out of the way. That is, if you find this helpful or enjoyable video, please give it a thumbs up. Click on that thumbs up icon and consider subscribing. It really helped me out with YouTube, and there's no charge to it. And no one will come knocking at your door, I promise. Okay. Today's video is come paint with me watercolors, and I'm going to do the next thing, which is getting familiar with the watercolors and making a color wheel chart. Now, in a prior video I showed you how I made my color wheel, which could be two ways: strictly with a compass and a ruler, or using this as somewhat of a template to help you get all the divisions. So that's what I'm working on today. Let me get my paper out. Now I've sped up this section of the video 4 times normal speed, because if I left it at normal speed, it would take close to an hour to do this exercises. I'm rearranging my supplies on my table so I can try to be sure that you get to see everything that I'm doing, as well as the supplies I'm using. I just sprayed water on my Cotman Field Box pans to get them reactivated. I do have my 2 brushes out, my good brush, which is the Raphael, which I showed in prior videos, as well as my mixing brush, which was given to me. A person got it in a subscription box. It's okay. It's very good as a mixing brush. I don't like to use my good brush as a mixing brush. Now, I decided not to use my good brush. I decided for this entire exercise I would use my mixing brush. Now here, I took a minute after painting in the yellow, and then I went back over to see whether or not I have a primary red, and I don't. And here is where I double check to make sure that I get the red in the right slot. What I have is a cadmium red hue, which almost all watercolor lines, that will be a red-orange. Now, remembering my experience in self-study as well as a class on color theory, I remember that you can use the permanent alizarin crimson, which I have right next to the cadmium hue, a touch of that in the cadmium hue mixture. You don't want to go overboard because you don't want to get it look rosy, but a touch of the alizarin crimson mixed in with that can give you a very nice primary red. Now you want to make sure, if you're going to use alizarin crimson in your palette, that you get permanent, not the regular. And some of the watercolor lines will have both. The reason for that is regular alizarin crimson is very fugitive in watercolor. That is not the case in some other mediums. But the permanent alizarin crimson, more or less, is very like permanent. If you're going to use it, make sure you get the right one, okay? Now, I'm going on to the next primary color, which is going to be the blue. And I determined, as you saw from the swatch and the color wheel, that I don't have a blue in my box that is matching the primary blue. So I decided to use cerulean blue, which is close, and darken it to get to a primary blue color. And the one I'm going to darken it with is the Interthrain blue. And the reason I'm using that is darker, and it doesn't really have that much of a red tone to it, like the ultramarine. And if I use a red tone, I was concerned that it might muddy it up or dull it up. So that's the reason why I'm using the mixture I'm using. And it does turn out to be a nice blue, although it was a bit watery, so it just indicates to me I need more practice in doing these type of exercises so I can get my water control and everything back up to snuff. And hey, join me with some of these exercises. Maybe you might need to work on that as well. Let me know how you're doing, or you have any suggestions. I will promptly respond to all comments. Now you see here where I'm mixing up some more of the cadmium red hue, and I'm getting ready to mix up a secondary color, which is going to be the orange. With the orange, I could have used not only the lemon yellow, which is what you'll see I'm using here. I normally go to that most often, but I could have used the cadmium yellow hue, which is a darker yellow there. Either one mixed with the appropriate amount of the cadmium red hue would give me the nice orange color that matches the color wheel. And that's what you saw me mixing here. And I'm going to be double checking that on the piece of paper to make sure, which is what I'm doing here. And you see that it does turn out to be quite nice. And I'll be filling in that slot. Which is what I'm painting in here now. Now the paper I'm using, I don't know if I said that, is the Fabriano Studio paper, which is 25% cotton, and it is the Hotpress in this particular case. It's taped down to an art board, which I made using cardboard, and I do have a video on that, and I'll link that below. Now I'm cleaning my brush, and I'm getting ready to mix up the next secondary color, and that's going to be the green. Now on my swatch chart I already determined the only green I have is a sap green, and that is not a secondary color because the green needs to be darker. However, what I can do, instead of using the lemon yellow with the two different blues mixed in to give me a primary blue, I could take the sap green and add to it to come up with the dark secondary color of the green. And that's what you see me here deciding what to do. Now initially when I did this, I didn't get a good green. It was a little bit dull and it wasn't dark enough, so I had to mix it again. And that's what you're seeing me mix here. And now I got it darker. And that is pretty much matching the green on the color wheel for a good secondary green color. Now the last one I'm going to be doing is the purple. Now I do have a violet, or what's called dioxazine purple, on my field box pans, but it's a little bit reddish purple. So I'm going to have to modify that and mix that color. So I'm using the dioxazine purple, and I'll be adding some blue to it to darken it up. And the blue I'm going to be using is an ultramarine blue, since it has a slight purplish red shade to it. It mixes beautifully with it. Now if you don't have a purple on your field box, use the permanent rose and the ultramarine blue. It makes a beautiful purple color, as well as you can also make a beautiful red purple color. If you have the dioxazine purple, of course, use it. It mixes quite well with, and makes some beautiful colors as well. So now I'm going to be looking to make what's known as the tertiary colors. Normally tertiary colors are made by combining a primary color with a secondary color. I don't like doing that because it adds so many of the pigments together. And the more pigments you have in mixing a color, the less brilliant it's going to be. It's going to be more dulled. So what I'm going to be using is my box here, and you see me getting some of the cadmium yellow hue and putting that into solution, and I determined that is a little bit too yellow to be a yellow orange. So I am going to have to add just a touch of the cadmium red hue to get it the right color, which is what I mixed here. Now I double checked it, and sure enough I did get it. Again, I did make that a little bit thin, and I'm going to be working on getting my color mixes and water control back up to speed. You can hold me to that. The next color I'm going to be doing after that will be the red orange. Now normally you could just take the cadmium hue and just paint that directly on for most sets. Occasionally you may have to add a touch of the alizarin crimson, which you see me doing here, and mixing on that because it seemed to be a little bit too orange for me. Now I got it. Alright, now the next one I'm going to be looking to do is going to be the red purple. Again, I'm going to be using the dioxazine red, and I'm going to add in a little bit of permanent rose to get a little bit redder. Now, if you don't have the dioxazine purple, use ultramarine and the rose to make your purples. You can get some beautiful purples that way. Sometimes if you use the alizarin crimson, which you can do, it can be a little bit duller. That's the reason why I love using the permanent rose with the ultramarine blue if I have to mix them from scratch. Or rose with the dioxazine purple. You can get some gorgeous, nice, brilliant colors, which you can see here. Alright. While we're looking to do the next tertiary color, which is going to be the blue purple. And again, normally you would take the purple and mix it with the primary blue to get a blue purple. I don't want to mix all those pigments together. So I'm going to take the dioxazine and mix it with the ultramarine. That keeps my number of pigments to make that color down to a couple. And here you see me painting that on now. While we're doing that, I just wanted to mention, if you find this video helpful or enjoyable, please click that thumbs up icon, as well as subscribe. There's no charge for it. It really helps me out with YouTube. Now back to color mixing. The next color I'm going to be mixing is going to be a turquoise or blue-green. Now this one I had a little bit of a hiccup. And you'll see that here in a minute. Because the initial blend I made was quite dull and I wasn't satisfied with it. Even though it was a blue-green, it wasn't the turquoise type color I was looking for. Now I'll go ahead and mix it. I think I have it. And I'm using interthread with the sap green. And it just didn't give me the color I was looking for, the brilliance. I'll still paint it on, and then you'll see that I use my Viva Paper Towel, which is the original, that has no pattern. And you can blot up very nicely with it, and since it doesn't have a pattern, it won't leave a pattern on your watercolor that you blot up, which some of the other ones can. And the only paper towel I know that doesn't have a pattern is the Viva original. I know a lot of watercolorists love using that, as well as other artists for other functions. Now, you saw, but I didn't like it. I patted it up. I could have put some more water on it, but I figured when I put my new mixture on it, it would just pretty much blend in seamlessly and it wouldn't matter. So here you're seeing I'm using cerulean blue instead of the interthread. And then I'm going to be using some sap green with it. And this color mixture, I did get a nice turquoise blue-green. Now, you may not be able to tell that from this lighting. I'll look into possibly being able to have this lighting issue or improved in short order, hopefully. It could be just an adjustment of the lighting I had when I was doing this. Now the final one I'm going to be making is the tertiary, which is going to be the yellow-green, which the sap green is pretty close. I will be adding lemon yellow to that. Again, please subscribe, comment. I'll answer all comments. And until next time, you have a wonderful day, and I'll look forward to seeing you at my next video. Bye now.